This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
It's one of the most anticipated weeks and anticipated sporting events in Valley Sports, one of the biggest sporting events in America, the WM Phoenix Open. Bucket list item for sports fans all over the globe. Well, I'm joined today on the Extra Point podcast here on Arizona's Family by Tournament Chair Matt Mooney and longtime Thunderbird and former Executive Director John Bridger to tell the story of the history of the Phoenix Open. Let's start back in 1932. Do you think the founders back then had any idea what they were onto here?
Oh, absolutely not. No. All they knew back then was that golf had a place in Arizona, and that because of weather and other things, people would be interested in coming here. So that kind of foresight, they were spot on. I don't think they ever envisioned this. Certainly, Mr. Goldwater. He envisioned a lot of fun stuff, and he was really the creative genius behind thinking that this would be really something special, and certainly proved his point.
Well, and you go back to Bob Goldwater, Matt. I don't know if you've tried to do this well, but apparently he was printing tickets for the first couple and running around. What are your responsibilities now as you've seen the attendance swell quite a bit since the early days of this tournament?
Yeah, it's fun. We still have leading up to the tournament a lot of dinners with past chairmen of the venues. Like last week, we had all of the past chairmen of House and Grounds that built the tournament, and they were talking about how when they moved to the TPC in 1987, they had no maps, they had no electricity, they had no gas lines, and they're literally out here, digging holes and making all of that stuff happen, creating maps. And so it has changed so much now that we're by far the largest event on the PGA Tour. It's a lot more email and phone calls and text messages and management of these big sponsorships. But it's good for us to hear those stories because it reminds us, where it came from, which was really digging it out of the dirt.
And people see the Thunderbirds on Sunday, usually walking up the 18th green and giving away the trophy. But the origin of just the Thunderbirds here in the Valley and how that led to the golf tournament getting started, getting supported, taking off, and what was the original goal of the Thunderbirds?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So the Phoenix Chamber in 1937 knew that we're coming out of the Depression and things are starting to happen in the Valley, and they saw that it was going to be a place of growth, and so they asked 5 businessmen in town. They said, "Would you guys create this group as part of the Phoenix Chamber to put on special events?" And they did a rodeo, they did a fiesta, they did a parade, they did a number of things, and I don't think they're very successful at it, but they had a great time. About that time, Bob Goldwater comes to them and said, "You guys, here's the story. The story is an opportunity is we've been doing this golf tournament here for the last 4 or 5 years. You should run this golf tournament." Convinced them to do it, and those 5 guys said, "Well, it sounds great, but 5 guys can't run a golf tournament." So they looked at each other and said, "Well, if you go get 10 guys, I'll get 10 guys." Next thing you know, they got 55 guys. And in 1938, Thunderbirds were founded in 37, but 1938 is when they got all these guys into the group, and the rest is really history. And Bob ran it, to your point, he ran the tournament until 1951 as the tournament chairman, getting everything coordinated with the help of the 55 guys. But they said, "Okay, but you got to do all the work." So there we were.
Well, and Bob, we thank Bob. We pay a note of gratitude to Bob, and I think everybody should who walks in the doors. A different entrance this year, and so many different things that we'll talk about here. As we approach tournament week and we approach teeing this thing off on Wednesday and Thursday. But just the initial Phoenix Country Club, Arizona Country Club. Going back and forth and to just hear the stories of how this grew. It looks like in the 60s, the prize money really started to take off. How much did the Phoenix Open become kind of a destination spot for professional golfers?
Yeah, I think, Bob Goldwater was very ingrained in Hollywood and a lot of celebrities. And so he was able to get, the Bing Crosbys, the Phil Harrises, people like that, to get involved in the golf tournament because they were very involved in California, and it was natural, for them just to migrate straight over here. And so, of course, then it was like, okay, we need a venue. Phoenix Country Club was the obvious venue, but Arizona Country Club at the same time saying, well, this is kind of fun. We want part of that action. And it probably worked pretty well back then because no one club had to, affect their members every year. They could move it back and forth. It was a different track, and it was probably fun for the players to do something different. And it was a very, and then TV really came into play in the 1960s when the TV contract started to happen. And that's when you start seeing, money behind it, purses started to increase, and, kind of escalated from there.
And how much do you think having Arnold Palmer win it in a playoff in 1961 really kind of helped put the Phoenix Open on the map? Do you know if it was on TV at that point?
I believe it was. The thing about Palmer was he won 3 consecutive years. He won 61, 62, and 63. Combined purse in all 3 years was $14,900 that he won.
Big money back then, right?
Oh, huge money. Yeah, he was a celebrity by big time then.
Well, I'm looking at the initial prize money. It looks like Byron Nelson took home $700 in one of the first tournaments, with Ben Hogan making $450 for finishing 12 shots back. Back then, I mean, you think about the guys who really laid the groundwork for professional golf. Have you heard any of the stories? Did any of those guys come around in the past 20 years or so? What was it like coming out here to Phoenix back then, and especially the TPC Scottsdale was the middle of the desert back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1987 was the move to the TPC. I think to your point on Arnold too, he became, they named him an honorary Thunderbird right after his wins. And I do think that also did a lot for the tournament. We've got a lot of really cool images from those years with Bob Goldwater, and to Bridger's point, all of his celebrity pals. And it's cool to look back at those images. You see Arnold Palmer, on the mic wearing a tunic, and I think that only added to the aura of the event.
When they first started coming here, a lot of them would stay with hosts. I mean,
really,
they would stay with residents here that would say, "Yeah, I've got so and so staying with me," and then they would help that do barbecues. The players would come to barbecues at houses. And so they kind of got ingrained in our, in Arizona and in Phoenix. They liked it. They liked the way they were treated. And of course they were all road warriors. They would leave here. There was one of our PGA rules officials tried to make the tour back in the day. His name is Slugger White. Slugger still does a lot of scoring for, I think, with Liv now. But, and he talked about, he and Gary McCord would jump in a station wagon and drive tournament to tournament to try to get in. And they were having a great time.
And making it an open tournament. I mean, over the years, we've always enjoyed that. The Monday qualifier, seeing what local guys can get in. How is that kind of enhance the experience, especially for the local golf community, to see who can actually qualify for the Open?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, there's a great story. Jesse Moeller, the coach at Grand Canyon, has won the Southwest PGA sectional a number of times. I guess he's probably 4 or 5 times now. He's in the field again this year. And so you have that spot. You've got the Monday qualifier, which, if you're a golf fan, it's worth pulling up the Monday qualifier list and the names of players in that Monday qualifier at McCormick Ranch. I mean, there's usually major champions trying to Monday qualify for the event. So, we want to be the People's Open, and it's kind of set in the context of fans, but I think you're exactly right. It's true about the players as well.
How much did the development and design of the TPC Scottsdale, how much of that was affected by how you could stage the tournament based on where the land was picked out and how the golf course was designed?
Yeah, when we were looking to move the tournament from Phoenix Country Club, and they were looking up on 7th Street at the Point, and never could get the deal done with the city of Phoenix. And at that point, Dean Beeman, commissioner of the tour, was doing the stadium concept. They had built a couple of them, and Herb Drinkwater, the mayor of Scottsdale at the time, said, "We've got a piece of land that'd be perfect." And it didn't take long. They came together and said, "We're going to move some dirt. We're going to create this stadium golf course that'll accommodate a lot of people." And got it done. Got the Bureau of Reclamation and Bureau of Land Management involved, and everybody signed on and said, let's do it. It's amazing how quickly it did come together. And here we were out in the middle of the desert.
And I do think you hit on an important point. I think the stadium design of this course is a critical piece in why we have been able to grow the way we have and have the crowds that we have. You know, you go to a lot of golf tournaments, even Augusta, and it's hard to see any golf because fans are stacked 4 and 5 deep. You can't see over the guy in front of you. And here, the way we have this mounding and essentially, you know, bleacher style seating on beautiful grassy hillsides is so unique to golf, and it allows us to have huge crowds, but people can actually still spread out and enjoy being able to see golf.
Was the stadium style seating meant then for holes other than 16? Did 16 develop the stadium, or did the stadium style course develop 16?
I think it's probably the latter, you know, because if you look at the original course design when the bleachers aren't up, I mean, 16 still looks like such a kind of a, you know, nondescript, basic little par 3. You know, you've got the big mounding around 18 and 10 and some other areas like that where fans have a good spot to sit on the grass. But 16, really, you go back and look at those images when Tiger made his hole-in-one in 1997, and you got a couple of rows of bleachers out there and a few little boxes. And I think that was really the catalyst to building what's now, you know, the most unique hole in golf.
So where were the two of you when Tiger Woods hit his hole-in-one?
Yeah. Well, I was in high school, but I remember watching it.
That's really funny. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about Rich.
I was here. I was actually in the Thunderbirds then as an active. And in all honesty, I can't say I was on 16. I'd been there. That particular year, I was a PGA Tour liaison. And so I'd been out to 16. I came back to the clubhouse, and I was actually in the clubhouse when the roar happened, and I saw it. So I missed it by, I don't know, 10 minutes.
Couple minutes.
Yeah.
Can you describe what that roar sounded like? And was it even something you could even feel?
I don't recall feeling it. Well, I mean, you just felt kind of energy, right? But certainly you knew immediately something big had happened. I mean, it's just, and it's kind of like it is today. I mean, we can still, even with all the structure, if you're over here in this parking lot and there's a hole-in-one, you know it's different than somebody that's not that close.
Yeah.
It just, because it goes on longer, and it's just, you can just feel kind of that energy coming. But I definitely, you definitely knew something major had just happened on 16.
Yeah.
I was walking towards 16 when Sam Ryder hit his ace in 2022, and it looked like 16 was shaking. It almost looked like a beer stein, and just liquid shooting up everywhere. Jared Lyle also with an ace in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, how rare do you think these things are just across all of sports to have? When you get one, how rare is that when you put it up against other accomplishments in sports?
Yeah, it is rare, and I think that hole, kind of back to the point on its design as just a par 3. It's maybe a 9-iron, and most days probably a wedge for these guys. And I think that you would usually think, well, if they've got a hole they're hitting wedge on all 4 days, there's probably going to be one at some point. And we've had some pretty serious droughts. I think it was 5 years between the one before Sam Ryder and then we had 2 the year Sam Ryder got one. And so we would love it if it happened every year, but I think these guys, it's funny, you talk to them. I mean, they feel the pressure, they feel the energy, they're trying to manage their adrenaline. I think it's a hard shot for them to hit because of the adrenaline. And so, we work with the tour, like, let's make sure we get some easy pin positions out there for them on 16. And even with that, you can't force it to happen.
One of the interesting, I want to say that ESPN maybe did a top 10 hole-in-ones, and I think they ended up saying the Tigers was number 1. And I think the tours actually said it's the number 1, it's the most played hole-in-one video ever on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
Still to this day. And something kind of funny about, I believe that year, Steve Stricker also had a hole-in-one. Tiger used a 9-iron, Stricker used a 6.
Wow.
don't know what that tells you, but
that says a lot.
Do you remember where the pin placement? Have you ever looked that up and seen how that compares?
Interestingly, the Tiger pin and Sam Ryder's pin were basically the same pin, front left. So there's something about that front left pin that they like. I actually was having a conversation with one of the rules officials about it this week, and they feel like that's the best spot for them. They can come in there and go middle of the green with a little bit of draw spin, but it's still. But we also, it was funny. As we were talking about it, he made the comment. He said, when you talk to the tour players, they say, I'm not going to go at that pin too aggressively because if I pull it left, I'm in the bunker and then I get booed. So I think a lot of guys bail out to the middle of the green.
Is there any way to quantify what Tiger's hole-in-one did for that hole and how it seems to just have launched it into the Coliseum it is today?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, to Bridger's point on the being the number one played hole-in-one of all time. I mean, I think it made it all of a sudden this hole that became a bucket list sensation for people that they had to see, and so it's that building on itself year in and year out that is, I think, certainly launched it.
No question. And I think Tiger came back every other year. I think he came back in maybe 99 and 2001. And of course, everybody wanted to get to 16 when he came through, every day to see, what's going to happen and the excitement. And so, that just led to, we need to build more stuff. We need to be prepared. And it just obviously morphed from there into an unbelievable Coliseum.
Is there another shot in the history of the tournament that comes close to comparing to the Tiger Woods hole-in-one?
I mean, I tell you, I think I'd have to go, in my opinion, would be probably Sam Ryder, even though the tournament hasn't grown significantly from that, because we're kind of max capacity in terms of our build there. In the social media era that we live in now, it was just amazing to me the coverage that shot got. Tiger launched it, but I think the coverage of that was unique to anything we've seen at the tournament.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about, and you alluded to it earlier about purses, is that Tiger and Phil started the massive escalation of purses. Our purse in 1996, I believe, was a little over, I think it was $1.2 million. 2001, it was $4 million. The next year we signed FDR and it jumped to 5.2 million. It just all of a sudden escalated, and that was largely driven by Phil and Tiger. And certainly the Tiger, hole-in-one, the national exposure it received, it drove that aspect of PGA Tour events, I think, more than anything, personally.
Yeah.
How would you describe the armies that would follow Phil when he went in 2005 and 2011? How would you describe that scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's you can't get around, right? It's kind of like going to the Ryder Cup and following the pairing that may decide who wins the Ryder Cup. Everybody's there, and that's kind of like with Phil. Everybody wanted to chase Phil, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the putt I wish would have gotten sunk was Phil's lip out to shoot 59.
Yeah.
That's right. That's one that, as you look in the history, I mean, it's written down here, but it wasn't one that jumped off the page as we were going through Arnold Palmer and Tiger's ace and everything like that. But I mean, if that would have gone down, that would have just could that have potentially topped the Tiger Woods hole-in-one in a hypothetical? Throwing you an unfair question.
Yeah, it certainly may have, with Phil being a 3-time winner, now. Yeah. And being ASU, I mean, as we all know, he played the event 30 times or something. I mean, good grief. So yeah, it may have moved right up, rocketed right to the top.
Is there a way to describe just how this plays? Who scores well? What you have to do to be successful on this course?
Yeah, I think you look at the list of champs the last 10 years or so since the ball's really started to travel so far, and these guys are hitting it so far. And obviously, Koepka, Matsuyama, Scheffler have all won it twice in the last 10 years. So those names jump out. But then you look at the list of champs. I mean, even last year, Nick Taylor, not necessarily one of the longest players on tour, but obviously putted it phenomenally, birdied 5 of his last 6, if you count the playoff to win over Charlie Hoffman. And so I think that, I think it's probably like most weeks, it comes down to who's rolling the rock the best, but it certainly doesn't hurt any week to be able to hit a long way either.
An interesting add on is if you look back in history, the cut line has stayed almost the same in the 30 years we've been here. And the winning score has stayed very similar. I think our winning score the last 11 years has averaged like 267. And it's been very consistent. And to Matt's point, obviously these players have gotten better, they've gotten longer, but the course has gotten a little longer. It's gotten tougher. The pins are tougher. The tee boxes have been moved to tweak it. So it's interesting. We think, oh my gosh, these young players are just crushing it, doing all these things. But at the end of the day, they're scoring about the way it did 10, 20 years ago.
And what does it mean? That's a super interesting point. What is it meant to have this tournament coincide with the Super Bowl as well, as people are kind of waiting for the big game to start? How much do you think that has kind of elevated its cachet?
I think it's really elevated the Super Bowl. That was my
we like to be we lead into the Super Bowl and build up the energy.
Yeah, we just hope they keep it up.
Yeah.
Have you seen a first quarter of the Super Bowl in the last 10 years?
I haven't.
No.
I don't think I've seen the first half in 10 years.
Yeah. No.
And by the way, I don't know if I've seen a second half either because I fall asleep. Yeah.
But we love it. I mean, when it started happening, it's like we're the only event on tour that can do it. In all honesty, and the tour will tell people that.
Yeah.
Because we can make it happen with the crowds, and it just has worked for us. We leverage it. We think it's great. We love going up against them. We love our coverage leading right into the Super Bowl. If we've got a good field and a good finish, the audience stays with us. So we think it's a perfect match. Every time it's come up about moving off a Super Bowl week, between Waste Management and ourselves, we're like, we don't want to do that.
No, it seems like a perfect fit. And it's also a perfect fit, the charitable aspect with the Thunderbirds. And if you could kind of reflect on how that began, and do you think the founders, going back to our original question, had any idea the checks that would be presented to local charities based on what is raised during this golf tournament?
Yeah, no, I don't. Again, I don't think they would have ever imagined that we would have given $200 million or $17.5 million in 1 year to charity. The whole goal was to promote Phoenix, and we think we've done a really good job of that. After 90 years, we think we've done our part, and the byproduct of that and what our guys work really hard for, what they're passionate about, is our community, what we're doing in our community, and the fact that we're impacting people and the amount of money we've given. And so I don't think they would have ever have thought that. And it's not about us getting recognized for that. I've said before, it's like, do you think getting a vet off the street into housing, he doesn't know where that money came from. He doesn't care. And we don't. We just know that we helped get him off the street, or if we've helped a child at Phoenix Children's Hospital, or we've put a medal around the Special Olympian. At the end of the day, most people don't know where the money came from. And that's okay with us. We know what we're doing. We know the impact we're making. This is our community, and this is why we do this.
Where did the Thunderbird tunic come from? What's the origin of the garb?
Do you want that or not?
No, go for it.
Well, it goes back to the Chamber of Commerce. The Thunderbird logo was a logo used by the Chamber at the time, and it's very much a traditional Native American logo, being the emblem. And so it was decided right then that the uniform of the day would be very traditional, native to Arizona and our culture here. And it was the blue tunic and the pendant and the concha belt. And so that was all came right out of the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce request.
Yeah, and there's so many things. I'll add one thing to that. There's so many things that we look back at, like the 55 and the foundation of this group and why they did certain things, and remark how smart they were in the way that they created it. And you probably know this, Mark, but like the the necklace that we wear. We have the beads on it, and you get the beads depending on how much money you raise, how much time you commit to junior golf and all these different causes, and how much time you have to put into your job depending on what your role is. And so with a group of pretty much, type A guys, that it breeds a real competition for excellence to see who can kind of outdo the other. And it's funny to watch these, uber successful guys around the group try to beat each other on these silly beads around their neck. And so it's competition breeds excellence.
Well, and what is it like on Sunday walking up the 18th green, knowing you're about to put the tournament to bed, and I guess a fatigue level at that point after hosting the tournament all week?
Yeah, definitely tired. I think that we try not to show our emotion in the fairway that we are not rooting for extra holes. But it's also a tremendous feeling because we've generally left it all on the line that week. We're tired, but you've got the sense of reward of having run a great tournament, and then to Bridger's point earlier, to be able to know what those dollars that we raised are going to mean in the community the next 52 weeks of the year, and get to see that payoff is awesome, and it makes it all worth it.
Is there another tournament like this on tour? I guess, why is there not another tournament like this on tour?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the answer is no. And we're proud that we have, become the largest event on the PGA Tour now by a real significant margin, if you look at kind of size and numbers. And, we do think that we've got some real kind of secret sauce that makes the event very special. And, that's one of the things that we've talked about, is we want to continue to make improvements each year. We want to filter the tournament through the lens of fan experience and player experience, but make sure we maintain the fabric of what has made it so successful over 90 years in this unique environment.
And the forecast, we got to give my wife a shout out. So it looks pretty good this year. We got our fingers crossed, and it's what can we expect? What are you most excited about here as we head towards Open Week starting on Monday? I guess Sunday night.
Yeah, well, we're going to have an incredible field. We announced Scotty Scheffler and Sahith Theegala yesterday. Obviously, Scheffler was trying to become the first three-time champ in a row last year since Arnold Palmer, and plays this course incredibly well. It was the site of his first win, so we're glad he's back in good health and going to be here. And we're at 30 of the top 50 right now, so this is going to be one of the strongest fields we've ever had. We're really proud of that. And then we've introduced quite a few changes that we think are going to make the fan experience just really, really good this year, and can't wait for our fans to get back and see all the improvements that we've made.
First question to Scotty Scheffler is going to be, why is it so hard to three-peat, and what would you say to the Kansas City Chiefs? Fair?
Yeah, I like it.
All right, last question for you. If anybody's listening to this podcast 90 years from now, if the technology still exists, what would you like to tell them about the where the Phoenix Open, the WM Phoenix Open was as you had it in your hands, and where would you like it to be as it continues here into the future?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I hope that we'll always be an event that's on the cutting edge of the golf industry, and providing innovative ways to enjoy the game, and providing a way to showcase the Valley, where we continue to see what we see now, which is executives, CEOs, fans traveling from really all over the world to experience this, and they in turn get introduced to everything that Phoenix has to offer. And if we can do that, and then at the same time continue to give back to this community in a significant way, then I feel like that'd be success in my mind.
And John, what year is this for you?
This will be my 35th tournament.
Man, well, thanks so much for all you've put into it, both of you guys, and thanks for taking some time for us to talk about how we got to this point. Looking forward to the next chapter this year.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.
Recording stopped.